Good morning, and still is morning. Good morning, and a very warm welcome to Financial Fitness Friday. We like to think we're a bit like the Joe Wicks of the financial world. Today's session, really looking forward to it. It's how to find good quality advice and guidance. And what better way to do that than actually ask a good quality advisor? So we've got Jamie Smith back with us today, who has been very popular in the past. Some of the responses that you give back to us, the feedback you give us, have been absolutely brilliant about him. So we might as well continue to use him. So thanks in advance, Jamie. I know you're in the back there waiting to jump in a moment. For those of you that don't know how this works, what we tend to do, we tend to go for no more than half an hour. I'm the host. My name's Darren Laverty. I'm from Second Sight. This is not a pitch. This is not a promotion of our business in any way. This is just good quality financial wisdom and content delivered to you in a different way, in a kind of a live talk show style event. It's very popular. Last week was absolutely brilliant. Last week was one of our record turnouts, and also feedback. And all we ask you to do is to keep giving us feedback. We want to make sure that this experience gets better and better, and also we really want to deliver to you what it is that you really want, what's most important to you. So when you come out of the session today, you're going to be taken to a feedback link and give us that feedback, warts and all. If there's things you don't like, let us know. If there's things you do like, please tell us. Makes us feel good, keeps us going. And there's any subjects, particular topics that you want, then let us know, and then we'll feed those into the team, and we can start to look at building out some of those sessions going forward. So the key thing is, I just want to share a story with you today because it's really important. Just a couple of rules. 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, you're free to go. If you want to hang around, okay, we're not going to go any longer than 30 minutes, but if you want to hang around, then we're going to do the Q&A. So during the session, please put your questions in the Q&A or the chat box, and I'll pull them out at the end. If you want to stick around to go through the questions, absolutely great. If those questions are relevant for a group, then what I'll do is I'll ask Jamie those questions, and we'll try to answer them for you. If it's an individual, a bit personal, then we'll pick those up individually and we'll pop an email out to you. Not a problem. We also record the session, and we put it on the YouTube channel. There is a YouTube channel called Financial Fitness Fridays. I think there's half a dozen on there at the moment, and we just have to keep making sure that they are approved all the time, because the content obviously will change. We've got a budget coming up in March. The content could change again then, so we just need to keep checking that it's current. So I just want to share a quick story with you to set this up, really, before we introduce Jamie. And I've got a bunch of questions for him as usual, and I'm sure that'll stimulate lots more questions from everybody else. But I've been doing this job now for 31 years, and if we go back to 1989, I picked up the phone and made a cold call. You have to be brave to do that. You don't get a lot of that going on so much these days, I don't think, in my industry. But I rang this guy, and I got hold of a lovely young chap called Stuart. And I arranged for Stuart to come and see me. Stuart was 19. And Stuart thought it was a good idea. After I had a conversation with him, he thought it was a good idea to start saving money. And he sort of bought into this concept of, why don't I save first and spend later? It's a good habit to get into from age 19. And he wasn't earning big money. He was working in a warehouse, and he never really did earn very big money at any time. But the key thing is that I said to Stuart, do you think you could afford £1 a day? And he did. He said, yes, I'll do that. That's where he started. So he started to save just £30 a month. Fast forward to age 47. And at that point, now Stuart's now 51, but when he was 47, Stuart was financially independent. Okay, he did not have to work. He still works. He's a warehouse manager. He still works. He doesn't have to work. He works because he wants to, but he's financially independent. And all that really happened was that I influenced him 30 odd years ago to actually start saving money. And he did, and he stuck to it. And he started saving. That savings went into investments. He stayed invested. And even though after 10 years of saving in a savings plan I set up for him, I actually gave him a check when the savings plan paid out. And the check was actually less money than it actually paid in. And I was embarrassed, because in those days, the products were not brilliant. But there was about 300,000 people out there like me persuading people to save. That's a good thing. And so what happened was, I said to him, I'm really embarrassed, Stuart, this policy is paying out less than you paid in. And he said to me, Darren, I'm not worried. That's £3,000 I would not have had it not been for you getting me into a good habit from the start. And look at my situation now. I've bought a property. I'm going to buy another property. I've got pension savings. I've got other savings. You've got me into a good habit from day one before I got used to spending the money. So that's a really great story. We hear all the horror stories, okay? Stuart gets a mention all the time. I mentioned this Stuart story on LinkedIn last week. It was one of my most popular posts, the most engagement and comments. I mentioned him in my book, Make Their Money Count. He gets a mention because there's lots of people out there like that. You just don't hear about them, because what happens is financial advisors, they were given a bad rep many years ago, but today you're not going to find many of those about. Most of them are really, really good people. So what that showed is it's not all about how clever they are at investing and all that sort of thing. It's also just having a conscience, having a third party, having somebody, a coach, to get us on that journey. So what I'm going to do, I've got a bunch of questions to ask Jamie. So Jamie, could I ask you to reveal yourself, please?
Yeah, good morning, Darren. Good morning to everybody watching and listening at home, and thanks for having me back again. It's good to be here. And 35 years, Darren, are you sure? You'll have to tell us the secret to your long flowing hairline.
No, it's 31 years. Yes, I'm very fortunate to have plenty of hair, so I'll take all the luck I can get.
just before we start, I've just got a story of my own, actually. I just wanted to share very, very quickly. And it's just a conversation that I was having with a colleague yesterday, a colleague who's just retired, in fact, and we were sort of talking about his career and is he happy and all the rest of it. And he said to me, look, I've had the best career I could have asked for, because many of my clients I've worked with for over 20, 30 years, they came in to see me and they had very little. And I've watched their children grow up. I've helped them to save for their children, see them through university, help them to repay their mortgages. Their children have had children, they've got grandchildren now, and those people have now retired and they're enjoying a prosperous retirement, the retirement that they always dreamed of. And he said to me, you know what, I'm so happy because I know that I've made a difference to those people. And when you think about it, that is what good financial advice, that's what any advice really is about. It's about making a difference, and I hope we can do that today. I know it's not for everybody. There's different types of advice, but today is all about helping people know where to start and how to find it.
Brilliant, thanks, Jamie. Absolutely, and most advisors I meet, over the years, are exactly the same. The ones that have been around for 30 odd years, they're the good guys. They're still in the business. They've been there for a long time and they've seen their clients come through. But nowadays the world is very different. Back in those days, there was 300,000 or 400,000 people out there persuading people to save money. There's nobody out there really nowadays persuading anyone to save. And advisors tend to only work with people that have already got a bit of money. And so we need to look at other ways of doing that. And there's lots of different ways that people can get that kind of third-party intervention, that kind of support and help. But just a quick question to start off with, though, Jamie, for you, and that is that why is it that people do not take advice when it obviously sounds like a good idea? Why do they not take advice?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting, because clearly there are some barriers that prevent people from kind of taking that step. And actually, we published a research paper on this a couple of years ago, looked at lots of different areas of financial advice. But one of the questions was around why people don't take financial advice, and actually I think there's no surprises really. There's lots of reasons, but there's no surprises with the top 3 reasons, and that's because most good advisors will always ask clients if they've taken advice previously or why they haven't, and the 3 reasons are usually the same. So the first one is because people generally feel that advice is too expensive. They just feel it's too costly and it's not worth paying for. The second one is because there's a misconception, I would say, about people thinking that they just don't have enough savings. They just won't be a worthwhile client, and advisors just wouldn't want to speak to them. They've got a lack of money. And the third is also pretty common. We hear a fair lot. People say, look, do you know what? I don't really need any advice because I think I can do this myself. I'm happy to manage my own investments and do it myself. Now, all 3 of those, I think, there's fraught with risks. And I think today, hopefully, we can help to dispel some of the myths around those as we go through and answer some further questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So there is some sort of halfway house situations that people can take advantage of. The government have introduced something called Pension Wise, which provides financial guidance. We hear this word guidance quite a lot. So tell me a bit about financial guidance. How does that differ to financial advice?
Yeah, financial guidance, I think, is the first step for many people on their advice journey. And guidance is primarily concerned with providing generic information to people about different areas of financial advice. So a good example of that might be helping people to understand how a pension works, for example. Now, there is the internet. Let's face it, the internet's full of information these days, and sometimes it can be difficult to find good quality information, and it comes in different formats. 5 years ago there wasn't so much video content. There's some fantastic podcasts available as well. I can recommend the Meaningful Money podcast. In fact, I had somebody who said to me yesterday they found that really fantastic. So I would encourage people to research, look at what's available, educate themselves. That's always important, always the first step. But just be careful, because guidance, what it doesn't do is it doesn't take into account your own personal situation. That's what advice is about. Advice takes it to the next level, where it's about providing somebody with a specific recommendation on what they should do based on what they want to achieve and their personal situation. But as I said, lots of providers out there, impartial providers. You mentioned MoneyWise. You've got the money advice service. You've got lots of kind of calculators that people can use online. These calculators sort of help people to get a sense of perhaps what they need to save in order to meet a certain savings target in the future. And if people want help with us, then just let us know, and we can suggest a couple of really good quality websites, videos, podcasts, that sort of thing.
I think also what's worth mentioning, for a lot of people, they have a workplace pension scheme, and a lot of the popular mainstream pension providers do have lots of very useful tools on their websites and on their apps. So definitely worth having a play around with that. And I think one of the things that gives us confidence and reduces our stress levels in life about money is partly being, feeling in control. So in order to feel in control, we need to be taking action. And feeling in control of most things financial. But the other element of being in control is to actually increase our knowledge. And so guidance is a great way of kind of learning as we go and using these tools and going forward. So I think what we need to do is, it's getting motivated to do it. And I think one of the ways you can do that is to ask yourself the question, what are the consequences of inaction? Play that move of your life into the future. Ooh, don't like the look of that. Okay, maybe I need to just start to take responsibility a little bit and start that process.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And, knowledge and education going forwards are going to be valued more and more. There's lots of misinformation and disinformation out there these days, and having a trusted source of information is actually really valuable to people. So happy to help them with that.
Brilliant, thanks a lot. So there's a few questions coming in, which is great. So please, everybody that's listening, as questions pop into your head, don't forget them. Just pop them into the Q&A, and I'll pick those up at the end, and we'll ask Jamie if you've got time to hang around afterwards. Now, something I want to talk about, which has become more and more popular, and it's not quite got the momentum I thought it would get at this stage, but there's something called Robo Advice. So, like, it's a play on words, a robot giving you advice, sounds a bit odd. And I think a lot of people are a bit confused to what that really means. So could you just explain Robo Advice, Jamie, what you think of it, and if people wanted to take advantage of it, where could they find some?
Yeah, Robo Advice is essentially an online investment platform. And typically people would follow a kind of a decision tree or a questionnaire that would ask them about their objectives, what they're saving for, how they feel about investment risk, and other sort of questions around perhaps how much they can afford to save, do they have a sensible level of cash available, those kind of things. And having followed that decision tree, at the end out pops a kind of an off-the-shelf recommendation, about where somebody should invest their money. So we're talking about sort of an investment recommendation, a portfolio recommendation. Now, Robo Advice, I think, is pretty ideal for people who are perhaps new to investing. Perhaps they haven't got a large level of savings built up. So I think it's a good place to start. I would always encourage people to have a look at the charges first and foremost before they start going down that route. So what are the charges? Are there any initial charges? Are there any exit fees? And what are the ongoing charges? They do vary greatly from provider to provider. There's lots of different providers out there in the market. A good one, I think, is Hatch, but there are many others. Just a couple of things to be wary of with Robo Advice. Although I think they're a great start, and often I have to say a lower cost solution for people, what they don't do is provide any ongoing advice. So if your situation changes, if your objectives change, the reason why you're saving, the Robo Advisor, the computer just won't know about that. And that's really the difference between working with a Robo Advisor and an actual, real person, a financial planner, so to speak. And another thing, just sort of to be careful of, is, as we've spoken about previously, people should always ensure that they have a sufficient emergency fund available before they start committing to any kind of investment. And when they save into a Robo Advisor, again, I would suggest that they still need to have a minimum 5-year investment horizon in mind.
Thanks a lot. I've just been having a quick look at the questions while you were talking, and if those of you out there in the audience, I'd really urge you, if you don't have to go in at the end of half an hour, then stay around. There's some really powerful, empowering questions. Can't wait to ask you them. I know the answers to a lot of them, but so if you can hang around for 10 more minutes after the half an hour mark, I really would urge you to do so. Some great questions. So just again, moving into this, we've talked about Robo Advice and guidance. I just want to try to make a distinction about some language. There's people out there that are called financial advisors, and there's people out there that are called financial planners. Ideally, what people need is to make sure that the person they deal with is regulated. Okay, a regulated financial advisor or a regulated financial planner. And what they can do, if they do bump into anyone who starts talking to them about providing a service, you can check them out. You can go to the FCA website and you can put their name into the FCA website. And if they're regulated and registered, they'll be on that website. So that's something that, and that'll just help people avoid scams and that sort of thing. Okay, so especially if someone's approaching you, quite aggressively, then check them out on the FCA website. But before going into the next stage, so the next question is there's what's called a financial advisor, and then there's what's called a financial planner. Can you kind of explain the difference between those two individuals, please, Jamie?
Yeah, this can be pretty confusing because I think it's pretty, it's common for people to give themselves different titles. So some people call themselves financial advisors, some people call themselves financial planners, wealth consultants, partners, private client partners. There's a kind of, a whole list of different titles that advisors typically give themselves. I think this is more about the way that advisors work. So you've got, I think, two distinct styles. Firstly, you've got what I would call financial planners. And really a financial planner is, we've spoken about this before, it is essentially like a coach. They are there to help you understand what you want to do with your money, talk about where you want to be, what are your kind of end goals, encourage you to have this kind of outcome thinking, as we call it. They'll help you explore things like the cost of living in retirement, perhaps how you feel again about investment risk. Are you concerned if anything were to happen to you, ill health, that sort of thing? Would your family have some sort of financial burden? And once they've established what all of those things, how important they are to you, then a planner will help you to create a financial plan, a strategy. And then underneath that, inevitably, that strategy will need to be replicated by using various different products and tax wrappers. I talk to my clients about, they're sort of like the tools in the toolkit, and they are used to replicate that plan in order to help people achieve those kind of goals. And crucially, a good planner will help to keep people motivated and help to keep them on track. So sit down and review their plan year after year. And that's why typically planners build such good relationships with their clients, because they're with them and they go through that life journey for such a long time. By comparison, I think a financial advisor, they're more focused on what I call the transaction side of things, the product side of things. So they're there to help people select a suitable product. Might be a pension, for example. So they'll find the best pension product available, or it may be sort of life cover, for example. And again, they may shop around on behalf of somebody. They're not really concerned about the bigger plan, the bigger picture. They're there just to help facilitate transactions. Now, there's pros and cons to each, and everybody, it's different styles of working. Not everybody will want a financial plan. Some people may just need an advisor to find the right product for them. What's important is that people speak to their advisor, they speak to their planner, they understand the way that they work up front, and they can decide whether that's what they want or not.
So I suppose one way to look at it, going on the Financial Fitness Friday theme, I suppose a financial planner is a bit like a personal trainer.
Yeah,
you have to pay a little bit of money, but you certainly do get more out of it. You definitely push yourself a bit harder. And I think research has shown that people that actually engage, on an ongoing basis with a financial advisor, financial planner, will always end up better off. The research has shown they're better off because they get that coaching along the way. And I think there's a good story, actually. One of our private wealth guys, one of our most senior guys, he was approached by a prospect, and this prospect had just sold his business, had quite a lot of money, and he was looking for a really good financial advisor. And he interviewed 3 of them, and he chose one, and he chose our guy. And when we asked him why he chose our guy, the difference was the questions he asked the client. The other two advisors, all they did was try to present to him and promote their investment portfolio and his track record and how clever it was. And this guy, his name's Andre, I'm sure he won't mind me telling people this, but he asked the client, what's important to you about money? And the client told him, and he said, okay, what's important to you about that answer? And he kept on asking that question until he got to the point where he found out what really was driving the guy from an emotional level, from a psychological level, and it was actually family, which, like for most of us, it is. And Andre never even mentioned the strategy, the investment strategy, how clever he was. He just asked the right questions, and that person felt that financial planner was going to get him to achieve what he wanted more likely than the others. So that's just a good example, maybe differentiating too. So a financial planner is a bit like a personal trainer in the fitness world. So in a perfect world, we'll all have a personal trainer. In a perfect world, we'll all have our financial coach, our financial planner working alongside us. Some of us can afford it, some can't. Some probably more can afford it. There are ways that these things can be paid for that make it a lot easier. But what do these sort of things cost, JD, and how can advice be paid for?
Yeah, this is a really important question, I think, because as we spoke about, some people feel they're put off by even making the first step or exploring whether financial advice might be beneficial, just simply because they believe it's far too expensive. And it is very confusing for people because advisors charge differently and costs can vary hugely. So it's important for anybody to first establish upfront what the costs of advice might be. Are there initial costs? Are there ongoing costs? And any kind of reputable provider will be completely transparent. They will agree a fee with a client before they start any work, and the client will understand what service they are getting in return. Now, there are a few different ways of charging. Less common is where advisors may charge a client on an hourly basis. So just like perhaps an accountant or a solicitor, they may say, look, for this amount of work, it's 5 hours and we're going to charge you for those 5 hours. Or again, less common is agreeing a fixed charge. So they may give them one quote and say, look, it doesn't matter how long it's going to take us, we're going to charge you this fixed fee. What I think is more common is where advisors charge on a percentage basis. And normally they charge an initial fee. And again, the initial fees can vary, but if I was to give people a sense of what a typical initial charge would be, I would say in the region of 1 to 5% on the value of money that advisor is advising on. And in addition to that, where people want that ongoing coaching, that ongoing advice, then there's typically an annual fee, and that can vary again, but typically I would say between 0.5% and 1% per annum. Now, it's really important that, as I said, that people check this. Many advisors these days will cap their fees. So for people who perhaps got larger pots of money, they may cap. And just one other note as well on this, Darren, because in days of old, advisors would get remunerated by the providers paying the advisor a commission. And that led to really poor practices, because advisors were sort of led into perhaps advising people to invest or buy products just because of the commission and not because it was in the client's best interest. Now, thankfully, commission is long gone. It's a thing of the past these days, apart from one or two areas. Now, one of those areas is for what we call protection or life cover, or where we're setting up perhaps a policy to protect somebody in the event of ill health. And providers will still pay a commission to the advisor. That has to be declared to a client. And interestingly, people ask me, why is that still the case? Why is that still allowed for that kind of area, for life cover? And the reason is, if you think about it, if people had to pay a fee to set up life cover, most people just wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it. And so that's why the regulator's still happy for commission to be paid by providers in that particular area. But mostly it's fee-based, and they should be agreed up front. And speak to your advisor, speak to your planner about it.
Yeah, I want to reiterate this point. I hear this a lot, and still, even though, commission paying products in the financial services industry for investment products, that went away in January 2013. I mean, we're talking about a long time ago. Some people still think it's there, and they still think there's a bias towards that particular commission. That has definitely gone. It's gone a long time ago, but I think a lot of people maybe had their fingers burned many, many, many years ago, and it's prevented them ever coming back to it. So, and I've noticed one or two questions along those lines, which we'll cover in a moment. So look, brilliant. This is really useful information, Jamie. Thank you so much indeed. People out there want to go and find an advisor. So we've got a couple of minutes left, literally 1 or 2 minutes of the half an hour. So very quickly, where can they find a good financial planner?
Okay, there's lots of places to find this. There's a couple of really good websites. Vouchedfor.com is a good example, and unbiased.com. Normally, they are websites where advisors can sort of post their contact details, perhaps their areas of specialism, and typically they'll have lots of testimonials and feedback from clients that they've worked with before. So I would look at one of those. Look at LinkedIn. Again, you mentioned LinkedIn at the start. Look at somebody's sort of history. Have they moved around a lot? That sort of thing. But I think the best thing of all, Darren, is just to ask friends and family for a referral. I think most advisors, most planners are introduced to new clients from an existing client. And I would just simply ask mum and dad, sister, brother, whoever it might be, do you get financial advice? Can you recommend somebody to me? And ask them about how they work. But feel free to. Most advisors are happy to at least have a telephone conversation, perhaps half an hour, have a chat, talk to somebody about how they work, talk to them about how they charge, and then people can then choose whether they want to progress from that point.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up this half an hour and then move on to the questions. Loads of questions, really good ones. So just next week, thanks very much, Jamie. Hopefully you can stick around for 10 or 15 on the questions. Next week, we've got a very, very bright young lady in to help us. This subject was one that was very popular from the request from the audience, how to reduce levels of financial stress and anxiety. I've done the preparation with this session. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. You're going to love it. You're going to be able to walk away with some practical steps to make yourself feel better, because at the end of the day, the quality of your life is the quality of how you feel every day. And then this lady can definitely help in that situation. So looking forward to that one. I'll have to put these caveats up there as well to keep our compliance department happy, because we are a regulated entity. So let me drop that away now. Stop the share. I've done that. If you do have to go now, good luck on your wellbeing journey. I hope you can find a good advisor out there. Also, you're going to be taken to the feedback. Well, please give us some feedback. We want to know how to improve these sessions going forward. So really, really respect everything you've got to say. I mean, I even had a complaint last week about my background, because I forgot to change it and I had the Christmas one up. So someone actually made a big fuss about my background. So I really apologise if I offended anyone with my Christmas trees in the background. Right, okay, let's look at the questions, Jamie. So I'm going to give you one, then I'm going to find the second one. So, okay, I think we sort of answered some of them already. What do I do if I think about bad advice? We'll cover that very quickly. I don't want to spend too much time there. I was missold a pension in the past and it's made me wary. So could you just put some thoughts around that, Jamie?
Yeah, I think as a first step, you should complain to your advisor if they're still sort of in business, if they're still sort of trading. Normally, most advisors have to have a very robust, very clear complaints process, and they have a dedicated person who deals with those complaints, and there's a set timescale which they need to respond to somebody within. If you're unhappy having gone through that process, you can then take your complaint to the ombudsman, and then they will decide the outcome of that complaint. So advisor first, or provider first, and then the ombudsman if you're unhappy after that.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So we've got some similar kind of questions here. What about distrust? So this is the sad thing. There's a lot of distrust about financial advisors, and it's really is historical. And there's so many thousands and thousands of great good news stories, but they just do not make the media. They don't sell newspapers. All we hear about is the doom and gloom and the bad stuff. And it is in the minority. The vast majority of financial advisors are absolutely wonderful people. I know, I'm not one anymore. I used to be, but I know hundreds of them, and they're really, really good people. They get into this business because they're people. They love helping people. There's nothing more satisfying than for them to come away from organising a client's affairs and making them happy. It really is really important to them in most of the time. So there's a few questions around that. I'm going to kind of skip over those now, because I think you said it really. Get a referral from someone that you can trust. There's lots of individual questions. I'm 50. Am I too old now to get advice on retirement planning? I've got some pensions. I've got some savings. Basically, is it too late? I'm age 50.
It's never too late. It's absolutely never too late. Again, I would suggest starting with a bit of guidance, reading up on a bit of information, a podcast, video, that sort of thing, and then perhaps speaking to a couple of advisors, telling them about your situation, what you want to achieve, what are your concerns, what do you want, what do you think you'll need in retirement to maintain the cost of living. And importantly, a good advisor, a good planner can help people understand where the gaps might be in their planning and what they might need to do to get there. Now, that might be a big jump, but there may be some compromises needed there. People may have to work and save for a little bit longer, perhaps, but better to be informed about that now rather than get to the point at which you stop working and then have a big shock. So the earlier that you get advice, the earlier that you start working with somebody, the better, but it's never too late.
Brilliant, thank you. Couple of questions around cryptocurrency. You're always going to get that. I mean, because of Elon Musk sticking $1.5 billion into Bitcoin, I think everyone thinks that's the way forward. I mean, any opinions on it, Jim? Don't give advice on it, for God's sake, but any opinions?
Yeah, well, I think, look, clearly some people are making huge returns from Bitcoin. I mean, the regulator is absolutely clear about this, that Bitcoin is very speculative, it's very risky, and people shouldn't invest money in Bitcoin that they can't afford to lose. So if you invest in Bitcoin, you should be willing to accept that money could completely disappear. So that's all I would say to people. Look, we've seen some fund managers, some investment managers are starting to think about using it very small percentages in their fund. It's fraught with risks, but I can understand why people now are starting to consider about some exposure to it. But whatever you do, don't bet your mortgage on it, and don't invest your retirement savings in it. Don't take unnecessary levels of risk. Only take the risk that you need to achieve your goals.
Brilliant, thank you. Another quick, you can probably answer this fairly quickly. Any recommendations on sourcing trustworthy companies for pension consolidation?
I think there's huge numbers of good companies out there. Let's face it. Let's be honest. There's far more good companies than there are bad ones. It's really difficult to sort of recommend, one or two good ones. All I would say to people is look at referrals first. So ask friends and family, do they work with somebody on their retirement savings, or use Vouch for or unbiased.com as a starting point. Decide what you want. How do you want to work? Do you just want somebody to advise you on your pension, or do you actually want somebody to look at your retirement and help you understand what your retirement perhaps should look like, what you need to maintain your retirement lifestyle, how sensitive you might be to running out of money, stock market crashes, that sort of thing. So that's really important. But I'm not going to recommend one company over another. I think that would be wrong to do so. Referrals first, as I said, and then the Vouch for or unbiased websites are a pretty good alternative.
Brilliant, thank you. People are asking where they can go and get financial information, YouTube videos, podcasts. You've got a few thoughts you can share there, Jamie? You give one?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. 5 years ago, knowledge and education on finances was pretty hard to come by. But so much has changed over the last 5 years. There's some excellent podcasts out there. There really are. As I mentioned, the Meaningful Money podcast. In fact, I've had a few clients say to me they find that really helpful. So I think that's a good starting point. They've got loads of previous podcasts that they've done, so you can sort of go through and look at the different topics that they've discussed. Again, you mentioned about providers having lots of video content, perhaps talking about specific things, how an ISA works, how a pension works, that sort of thing. Lots of advice companies are running sort of webinar type sessions as we're doing now. And if you're looking for a more sort of impartial advice, it is a bit dry, I have to say, but pension wise is worth checking out. And also the Money Advice Service, they basically put things into real kind of simple stuff, I think, easy to understand content. It is written content, so it's not usually sort of video or podcast type stuff, but it's very simple to understand.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got a few thank you. Okay, that's good. I'm getting quite a few thank yous. People have to drop off, but that's fine. Still got lots of people here. The vast majority are still here. How long have we got? We've got a few minutes. Okay, got a few more minutes. Just finish off a couple more questions. Somebody said here, I just want to clarify this because they are stuck with this problem. It's not a problem. It's a problem for a lot of people. Somebody here has got a final salary defined benefit type pension scheme, and they said that it won't give as much per year as was informed. It would cost £15,000 up front to get advice. I think that's not true. I know that the guys in our own organisation that are qualified, I think Jamie's one of them, to advise on final salary pensions, I think they charge about £1,500 for that advice. Is that right, Jamie? What should people pay for that?
Well, just to clarify, again, I can only talk about very generically about this. Firstly, defined benefit pension transfers, final salary pension transfers, is a highly regulated and high risk area for the vast majority of people. Just simply can't afford to give up a guaranteed inflation proof income for the rest of their life. It's only really where people have got plenty of other savings, plenty of other wealth and capital and income that they can really afford to do so, or if they're in extremely poor health, they've got a life limiting condition. These days, most importantly of all, these days, that advisors have to charge on a non-contingent basis. What that means is advisors charge the same fee regardless of the outcome of the recommendation. So even if they tell somebody to keep the pension where it is or transfer it out, they have to charge the same fee. So that's really important. Now, all advisors will charge different fees. I think this is an area where they probably vary, again, very much. If we look at our own company, we do cap fees at £10,000. I'm sure many other companies take a similar approach. Speak to your advisors first, as I said up front, and there is a sort of a lower cost form of DB transfer advice now known as a bridged advice. That won't go so much into somebody's personal situation. It does sort of tend to look at things at a higher level, and the purpose of that is really to help people understand whether it's not worth going down that full advice route first. So that might be a good starting point for people who are really unsure. Ask their advisors if they offer a bridge advice and check out the fees first.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got a quick one here. I think this will be yes or no answer. I know the answer already, but I'm going to ask you. Interest rates are really low. What advice would you give those who still want to set aside some money each month? Should they be investing those funds instead?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked previously about pound cost averaging, haven't we? So firstly, if you remember the three rules of the three basic principles of investing, emergency fund, 5-year investment horizon, and investing in a balanced manner. So as long as you've met those three principles first, then you can look at saving on a monthly basis. If you save into an investment, we know it goes up and down. It's volatile. The higher risk, the more volatile it tends to be. But when you're saving monthly, you've got this concept known as pound cost averaging, the power of pound cost averaging. And essentially what that does is it helps to smooth out the investment returns if you are saving on a monthly basis. And actually, volatility becomes your friend rather than your foe. So that's really powerful. Again, look into it a little bit more. If people want information on it, perhaps we can do another session on it some other time. But yeah, I would, if you've met those three basic principles, you know what you're saving for, then don't be put off by market volatility and low interest rates or whatever it might be.
Brilliant. Just to finish off, there's somebody on the chat box has mentioned, for those people that are in the thinking about their defined benefit pension transfer, this person said, I'm in the process of doing it. I can talk to you about my experience. So that person's offered that as a conversation. So that person that mentioned DB pension transfers, if you want to let us know, and we'll put you two together for a chat if you want to do that. That's not a problem. And somebody else mentioned earlier about pension consolidation. There is an app called Pension B, I believe, is pretty popular out there at the moment, and it finds pensions very quickly. I think it's pretty low cost. It's got a dashboard, you can see it all in one place. Again, I'm not recommending it, but it is something you could have a look at out there. I've got people here saying, how do you become a financial advisor? Well, you have to get a job in a financial services business, a financial advice company. So you might start in administration, go into power planning, supporting an advisor, go out, start shadowing them, take your exams along the way, end up being where Jamie is, a really good financial planner. That's one way of doing it.
A great career, Darren, for any young person thinking about, not sure what they want to do. We know that there's lots of older advisors going to be retiring over the next few years. We need new, younger advisors coming through. If you like working with people, if you like providing advice, making a difference, as we've said, then I would encourage anybody to consider this as a career.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, well, I think we are done. Somebody said, how do I contact you for a financial advice? This is not a Foster de Novo or a second site marketing opportunity. This is not what this is about. We're not here to promote ourselves, okay? Jamie mentioned Vouched For, and he mentioned unbiased.com. You can go to them, if you do want to find us, you know the name of the company. There's the internet, but this is not what it's about. So I really appreciate the request. But if I start promoting our business, this is not the reason we're doing this, and I don't want to tarnish the whole experience. So, but look, thanks very much, everybody. It's been a great group of people. It's still the vast majority. I think we've only got about 10%. Good luck to you. Hope you find what you're looking for. Hope you find the guidance and the help you need. We all need all the help we can get, and I just want to wish you every success on your journey to financial well-being. And a big thank you to Jamie. And I'm sure this is not the last time we'll see you, Jamie. Thanks ever so much. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye. Lots of thanks coming through there for you, Jamie. Great stuff. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.